these Allen key bolts off on the bottom of the plate. There's 4 of them, and so I find that using Allen key, they can be on quite tight, so I've just got some vice grips on the end. We want to make sure we don't strip these screws because they're really hard to get out if you strip them, but if you get that on the end, they often turn a lot easier and they just come all the way out. You just want to check underneath to see if there's any washers. So in this case, I've got 2 washers here. Yeah, another 2 washers. So you want to take note of where those washers go. In this case, they're at the front of the chair. So I know when I put it back together, I've got 2 washers there and 2 washers there. I've got to make sure I don't put them at the back or on the sides. Then there'll just be this bolt in the top, which is holding the plate on. That usually comes out a lot easier than the ones on the bottom, so you won't need the vice grips. And so we just want to pull that out. It's typically the same as the ones that come from the bottom of the chair, but I always just put it separately just in case. I think in this case it's a little bit longer, so I'm going to put that over there separate from the bolts that came from the bottom of the plate. Once we've got that bolt out the top, this plate can be on fairly tight. I can go at it with a rubber mallet and it'll eventually go, but I've got this tool which is called a wheel puller, and I'm going to use that. So what I have to do with that, unlike with the rubber mallet, is put something in there that I'm going to be able to use as leverage against this. And I want to hook these hooks on and then tighten it down. Once we've got this wheel puller tight on there, again, if we're going out the rubber mallet, we wouldn't need to be doing this, but I just find this is an easier way, less aggressive. I've got the vice grips on there, and I'm just turning this until it eventually pops. If the stopper on your hydraulic works where you can pull it up and it stops moving from side to side, then do that, because that's going to stop the plate from spinning while you're turning this. I want to get an Allen key that's a bit smaller. You can try your Allen keys and see which one works, but on the side here where these mount on, there's these little grub screws which come out with the Allen key. You can probably see it in there. Those little grub screws. There's one either side. Just need to wind it out, not too much. That's just what's holding it. Lift this off the top. You've got this pin that's in here. If for whatever reason you have a cover, and they don't always have covers, but if you've got a cover where you can't pull it off without this, then you just want to put a screwdriver in that end and hammer it out with just your hand on that side, or something's going to catch it, otherwise that pin's going to go flying. Flip the hydraulic over. We've got to take the plate, the base plate, off the hydraulic. So it should just be a 10mm socket. It might be different for some other types of chairs. We can just loosen that up with our socket. Usually after that, you can just do it with your fingers. Lift it up like that off there. And then that's a dodgy hydraulic. All right, now for each one, we should end up with this thing that looks like this. You've got your nut, then you've got a ring nut, then you've got a washer. You want to keep hold of them in that order. They're going to go back on in that order. All right, so now we've got our old faulty hydraulic. You don't need that. We've got our brand new hydraulic, which we're going to put back on. We've got our base, and we've got our chair top. And now it's time to put it all back together. Essentially, it all goes back together the way we took it apart. And so that could be it if you know how to do that. But I'll put it all back together now and you can watch that happen as well. Cool. All right, so I've got that back in there. I just want to put this back on in the same order with the washer, the ring nut, and then the nut on that side. Now, I can do that while holding it like this, or I can flip it over like that. It's going to be unsturdy, but I'll be able to hold it from here. If I really want to, I can use the plate on the bottom, but just be mindful that the plate is then going to be a bit firmer on there. You're going to have to bust it off again. It won't be as firm as what it was the first time when you busted it off though. So I'm just going to do it like this. And I'm just methodically going around. I'm just going to finger tight them. Once I've got them finger tight, then I'm going to go at them with that 10mm socket. I'm just going to tighten these up. I just do it in an odd order so that I'm not upsetting anything. I might go from here to here to here to here, and then just go around, do that a few times. I don't want to get it too tight. It doesn't need to be too tight. There's a bit of play on the other side that's going to hold it together, so that's okay. But just until it starts feeling a bit firm, it's enough. Now, if the hydraulic that you've got doesn't have a pin in it, and it doesn't come with a pin, and you didn't need to take the pin out when you took the top cover off, then you can just put something like that in the end of it and hammer it out. Just being careful to either go really, really slow so it doesn't go too far, or have something on the other end to catch it. Now these have a tapered end on one side, and that's the end that we then want to hammer into here. Now, if you have a hydraulic where you had to take that pin out before you put the cover, or you could take the cover off, you're replacing it, make sure you put the cover on before you put the pin in. Otherwise, you have to take the pin out again, put the cover on. I'm gonna leave the cover on just because it doesn't bother me to have it on, and I'm just gonna hammer it in. And it doesn't need to go in too far, just enough so that the plate that's sitting there can sit in that groove. Now we want to put this back in. And since this has to go back in, depending on your hydraulic, but in this case, I cannot put the cover on after I've put this in. So I've got the cover on now. Now, something I'm mindful of is that to get my hand under here is going to be really, really hard. When I took the hydraulic off, it was jacked all the way up. So I can just put this in without the grub screws being tight, and I can pump it up a bit. So that way, I'm able to put the cover up further, and I have more room to come in and tighten the grub screws. Now there's these cutouts here on either side, and that's essentially where we want the grub screws to go in. So when we put it in, we want to make sure it's even on each side, but we'll tighten one side a bit first, then the other side a bit, and then we'll tighten both. And what we want to do is see where they are, but if we have it in roughly the right place, it's not too far forward and not too far back, as we tighten it, it'll just, the grub screw will push into that groove and it'll find its spot. Goes on the top. You didn't see me remove that in the first part, but it's really, really easy. If you can get it in there and it lines up, there's a little hole, and we just want to drive that in. And that's just what holds this in place. It's not necessary for it to be there, but if we put it in there, then it's just going to hold it in place. And you just want to make sure you've got a bit of clearance all the way around when you put that in, from where the rod's going to come up and down. And that just holds this nicely in place. Now here's the plate, here's where the groove sits on. Now this is ideally made where this would be the front and this would be the back, and you'll plate at the back, but it doesn't really matter which way you put it around. But I recommend if your plate looks like this, and you have this opening towards the front or the back there, and again, it doesn't really matter where that thing is. Even if I put it off center, I put the chair off center, it doesn't really matter in this circumstance because the plate is even and flat the whole way around, and we're using the washers to put the seat up a little bit. Come around here, you can see that the plate sits on like that, on there. So the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to have that be the back and that be the front. My two washers are going to sit there, my two washers there. You might have no washers on your plate, you might have a plate that's a bit different. Just take note of how the plate is on, and if there's any washers, where the washers are. When you take it apart, you just want to put it back together exactly the same. Now you've got two options here depending on what's easier for you. You can put the plate on top and put the bolts on top. Now we have to put the plate on. We can't put the chair onto the plate on the chair and then put this on top, unless you want to go without having this bolt. Now this bolt in the top is just an extra precaution. As you could probably tell when you took the chair apart, it's been sitting there for so long, being pushed in by so many people going up and down and sitting on it over the years, that it's on really tight. But what this bolt does is just make sure that this is not going to come off. So we just want to get that pretty tight. Doesn't have to be super tight. You probably noticed that it wasn't super tight, so that's enough. That just means it's not going to go anywhere. Put these back bolts on, but they're not very tight. I haven't put the front ones in yet. I put the back ones on first so that the chair's not going to fall over and fall on my face. There's something sort of holding it in place, but it's not super tight because I actually want to be able to pivot this chair up. I want to push this chair up on this side and put these washers in place. What I do to help assist that, I can use an Allen key or any kind of screwdriver or something like that, and I can sort of line them up that way to make sure they don't go anywhere. And then I'm going to put, well, I've got that in place, I'm going to put this one in and just get it a little bit tight, just a couple of turns, nothing too major, and then I can do the same again with the other side. Now I've got all four bolts in loosely the same way it went together with the two washers at the front on either side. Just getting all these tight. They don't need to be too tight, but I'm going to go around and do it like this first because it's easier, and then I can go around. This hydraulic now should last you a few years, and remember, you might need to come back and do this again in a few years, and you'll thank yourself if you don't make them too tight. So now we've got our chair with our brand new hydraulic on it, and unlike before, it goes up and it goes down.